Hello, this is Margarita Monet from Edge of Paradise, and you are listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shaped heavy metal. Please visit us on our website at www.themetalpit.org, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit, and we have a YouTube channel, which is at The Metal Pit 666. If you have any comments or album suggestions or questions about this podcast, please email us at podcast@themetalpit.org. I am your host, Blake, and I am like the president, I guess I'll say, of the Metal Pit website. Today, my two guests are two of my writers. One is Jim. How you doing, Jim?
Doing great. Glad to be here. This is fun.
This is your second in a row, actually, as we just did Deep Purple's Machine Head last week. And my other guest is Anthony, another pretty new writer. How you doing, Anthony?
Doing pretty good. And this is actually my first podcast, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And since it is your first podcast, well, quickly, I didn't brief you about this, but you kind of mentioned it while we were talking. But how did you get into heavy metal music?
Oh, God. It started probably late 70s with my mom would drop me off at the babysitters. And the oldest brother was into Kiss and Ozzy and Queen and all that stuff. And that's where I learned it, probably about 4 years old.
Well, that's before me, that's for sure. And you're also in a band. You play guitar, right? In a band. What's the name of your band, and how can people find you, and what kind of stuff do you play?
Sure. The band is Deviant, and if you have some paper and a pencil, it's DEV-I-ANT. It's based out of Toronto and Markham, Ontario, with Devin Sabatini and myself, Anthony Prugo. That's how we came up with the name Deviant. We write horror soundscapes, just really kind of evil music, inspired mostly by cold meat industry. And I also have to give a really big shout out to my girl, Kat Coulter at Your Welcome Tattoos, and her whole entire crew, for giving probably some of the best ink in Canada.
And that's in Toronto too, right?
Yeah, right in Cabbagetown.
And so all three of us are from Ontario. Oh, no, we're not. Sorry, Jim. Jim's in Nova Scotia. Me and Anthony are both in Ontario. Sorry. Got confused there. Okay, so on today, whatever episode, we're going to talk about the 1980 album from Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Ozz, his first solo album. And at the end of the podcast, we're going to give our top 10, I'll say, hard rock, heavy metal albums of 1980, just in case there wasn't enough heavy metal albums in 1980. And there's no questions about, is this metal or is this metal? So that's why we're doing that. But first, we're going to do Blizzard of Ozz. It's the debut studio album, of course, from Ozzy, released September 12th, 1980 in the UK, and not till March 81 in the US. Oh, I didn't really realize that. Sorry, I should read my research first. But anyway, we're calling it 1980 since that's when it came out in the UK. And of course, this was the first of two studio albums with Randy Rhoads on the guitar prior to his death in 1982 in a plane crash. And let's see, I don't really care too much about Rolling Stone magazine, but in 2017, it was ranked number 9 on the 100 greatest heavy metal albums of all time. Now, the people in the band at this time, of course, Ozzy on vocals, Randy Rhoads guitar, Bob Daisley on bass, Lee Kerslake on drums, and Don Airy on the keyboards. Ozzy has 13 solo albums. I probably stopped listening after 5. And he also appeared on 9 Black Sabbath albums. And let's see here. Let's start with, when did we first hear Blizzard of Oz? Everybody's probably heard Black Sabbath, but Anthony, when did you first hear the Blizzard of Oz album?
Oh, it definitely would have been like when it was released. I see the cover just like it was brand new. And Randy Rhoads, from that point on, not just Randy Rhoads, but the whole Ozzy experience was incredible. It was something that you had really never heard before. And then Randy just topped everything off. You mentioned about the Rolling Stone, and they mentioned him number 9. But I think if Randy was still around today, he would be probably the best guitarist in the world.
And Jim, when did you first hear Blizzard of Oz? Did you get it right away too?
No, I think, in 1983, Bark at the Moon came out. So there was a little bit more video play with that. I was getting into, I think, as I said on the last podcast, I got into metal around 1980. So probably a little late, but obviously went back through and got Diary as well as Blizzard of Oz. And I mean, from then on, I've got all his albums, and I agree, probably after maybe No More Tears, Osmosis, I don't know if I've ever re-listened to them, but the new album, number 9.
I totally agree with you, Jim.
And Patient Number 9, the newest album, which I know we're not really talking about, it wasn't bad. It hit my honorable mentions for my top 20 last year. Wasn't, I got to admit, it wasn't bad. So, there's definitely, those first 5 or 6 were amazing. And then after that, definitely a drop off for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
And I know that I got it I think I got, does anybody remember Columbia House Records where you would buy 7 albums for a penny?
Was the worst. And I just have to let you know, I worked at HMV for about 8 years, and we had that ultimate policy where bring it in, we'll give your money back. But Columbia House pressed all the cassettes or whatever they had, so it would be signatured. And we would have to refute those, but it was a giant disaster. So I don't know whatever happened with that, but it was a scam.
But I think that is where I got Blizzard of Oz first, was on cassette I got a bunch of cassettes from Columbia House. I don't remember any of the other ones that I got. I only kept a few, but I think that's where I first got it. I remember playing it on my ghetto blaster thing outside of my house out in the country while I played catch or something like that, or I played with my dog and I listened to Crazy Train and that kind of stuff. So anyway, okay. So, and of course I knew Black Sabbath before that, but
that was the second riff I learned after Smoke on the Water. How typical. It's just so cliche.
Well, it's funny because me and Jim just did the Deep Purple's Machine Head, and I told him even I know how to play Smoke on the Water, I have a guitar, but I'm not very good. But I said I could play Smoke on the Water, and I did try to learn the opening riff of Crazy Train, but I could never do it very good, but I think I could do it where somebody might understand it.
Oh, the whole song, when you get to play the whole song, you just feel free afterwards. It's amazing.
Well, I'm not talented enough to do that. So, okay. This album, of course, this album. I don't know why it says, of course, this album. I checked out the live. Let's see. I forget what it's called. Setlist.fm website that has a running stats of when bands play songs live. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but it's probably a good basis of things. And songs from this album, they played Ozzy played songs from this album 4,000 more times than any other album.
Wow.
No More
Okay.
Tears is the next highest studio album on the
Okay.
list. I thought it would have been Diary of a Madman, but it says it was No More Tears. So we're going to get to the album, and it starts off with the song that they've played the second most live, and that's I Don't Know. And I'll start with Jim on this song we'll start with Jim on this song. What do you think of I Don't Know?
Oh, it's a great song. I mean, a good song to start the album off. And, I'm not a guitar player, not a musician. So, it's kind of cool to be on with a couple of guys here. One who can play "Smoke on the Water" on his guitar there, Blake, and an actual guitarist. That no offense, Blake, but this is awesome. Yeah. And but I love to hear the insight from Anthony on Randy Rhoads. Randy Rhoads, in my mind, is my favorite guitar player. I Don't Know is a great track. It starts it off. There's some great riffs in there. And Ozzy just really electrifies the song. Not my favorite song on the album. I mean, there's so much content to this album. But I think it's a great starter track. I like it. You've got Lee Kerslake on drums there that just kills it. Daisley on bass. I mean, it's just a great mix. And I remember the first time putting this album on, after I went backwards from Bark at the Moon, and then getting into the Randy Rhoads era. Wow. This song just blew my mind, wanted me to listen to obviously the next song. And obviously, the next song I knew about and many of the songs on there, but it is a great song. And I think this one's played live fairly often. I'm sure you probably know, Blake.
This is the second most song they've played live. I think everybody can guess what the first most is, but anyway. So Anthony, I'm sure you like, I Don't Know.
I think after Bark at the Moon, Ozzy really lost his edge. Like, I do like I Don't Know, but like after that point, I really don't consider him metal anymore. He's almost like pop rock. It's just that he's gotten too soft. So if he went back to those days with the killer riffs, with Zakk Wylde, and made himself reputable within the metal community, he would deserve a lot more credit. But for me right now, he's pop rock. He's in there with Taylor Swift.
Well, I don't think he's really going to do anything else anyway. Because he's kind of old and failing, I think. He was supposed to play a festival this summer, but he's canceled that anyway. So I don't know if we'll ever hear him record anything else again or not. But yes, that song, I Don't Know, was played 1,155 times live, according to that website. And then Crazy Train was played 12 times more. 1,167 times.
Does that include the theaters, like at hockey games and all that?
No, this is just in concerts.
Okay.
I'm sure it's been played at hockey games a lot too.
Well, in Canada, it sure does.
So, Anthony, what do you think of Crazy Train? Even though you kind of mentioned it already, but
yeah, it's evolutionary. The whole concept behind it, about that single riff and into the chord progression of the whole thing, it's just absolutely genius. And there's no one else, even to this day, like Van Halen or some of the other guys, just could not pull that off at that time.
And Jim?
Well, I mean, he's a musician, so he knows that. I agree. 100%. That riff is just, phenomenal. The song's been played so much, probably, and I'm, to the point of maybe being overplayed a bit. But every time you hear it, it's neat because this song was originally written about the fears of Cold War. So when it comes down to it, you're looking at this time when there was the whole fear of Cold War. This song came out. It was pretty neat, pretty good sign of the times to be kind of exact. But it's been played, like you say, so many times. And the interesting thing is, my daughter, I have a 7-year-old daughter who, obviously knows a lot about heavy metal just by absorption. This song was focused on a Trolls movie, and Ozzy was actually a cartoon in that movie. And she can sing it. And the lyrics were changed, I think, a little bit, but that's exactly where this went. It's just such a powerful song, and the musicianship. Randy's a genius. So and that's pretty much it from my end. Obviously a crowd pleaser, an amazing song, and it's in 1980. This was definitely groundbreaking material.
Well, according to Bob Daisley, Randy was playing the first riff, and I guess they both used to collect model trains, him and Randy Rhoads.
I did not know that.
And Daisley said to Randy, "That sounds like a train." But he said it sounds nuts. So I said it sounds like a crazy train. Now, I don't know. I'm sure Ozzy would say he thought of the title, but anyway, that's what Daisley said, that he came up with the title Crazy Train. But who knows?
Regardless, it is one of the most classic songs ever.
But yeah, I agree with Jim. It's been played so much that some people now probably are like, "Oh, it's not my favorite song anymore," just because it's been played so much, just like Smoke on the Water. Then we go to...
I can't stand Smoke on the Water, but I will never, ever get sick of Crazy Train.
Yeah.
Then we go to Goodbye to Romance. This was actually the first song written for the album. Ozzy said this was his goodbye to Black Sabbath. I don't really know what goodbye to Romance. I guess Black Sabbath was romance. I don't know. But even though it's a slower one, because if people have listened, I don't like ballads. I don't like slow songs, but I like this one. And probably one of the main reasons is the guitar solo, of course, by Randy Rhoads. So, Jim, what do you think of Goodbye to Romance?
It's a great slow song. And I'm sure Andy's going to speak about the classical guitar solo in it. That just sounds so great. I'm just going to touch on it because I don't want to take away his thunder. But yeah, saying goodbye to Black Sabbath, and maybe even the song even reeks of new beginnings in my mind. So I think leaving that, some of the lyrics in there really indicate the fact that, everybody's having fun except for him. He's the lonely one. So, I get from that the fact that he's thinking that, here's Sabbath continually going on without him, and coming out with a big album that year as well. Not to give anything away. And then going with that. So that's what I think. A great slower song. Great musicianship. I like it. It's one of the stream of metal songs that both me and my wife, could get into. My wife was my high school girlfriend back in the day, so we listened to all this as it back then, so and brought a lot of that out. So that's what I think about it. And I really like the song. It's again, probably not my favorite song on the album, but it's up there in the top half for sure.
Anthony?
Yeah. Well, it turns out sometimes, Ozzy is over glorified and he writes some really stinky songs, but it's his band that picks him up from those stinky songs. And I tune out to the vocals and I focus on the musicianship of the drums, the bass, and especially Randy. So I can't say too much about it because it's, again, one of those songs I tune out to. But overall, it's a great album. The song is not that bad. It's just, yeah.
It's not one of your favorites. Okay, then we go to D.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Then the next thing is just a 50-second acoustic little ditty by Randy Rhoads, obviously. So I don't know. We don't need to say a lot about a 50-second instrumental, but Anthony, do you want to say anything about that?
Don't get me started about one of the best songs ever written for his mom. It is just, and I don't even say I could master it. I can play it perfectly, but to get that same feeling that Randy did, I can never replace that. It was incredible. And probably like, and again, I'll say Eddie Van Halen, whatever, did Eruption. Screw that. Give me D instead.
Well, the thing I don't like
is true guitar. That is true guitar and feeling and emotion. And yeah, I can shred like Ingwe, but when it comes down to it, D is on its own, one of a kind. That's it. Hard stop.
I just wish it was longer because I could definitely handle listening to Randy Rhoads play like for 3 or 4 minutes an instrumental. That would have been great. It's because I'm sure it's something he would have done if he didn't pass away in the next year. I could see him releasing a solo album and stuff like that, instrumental, but whatever, we don't get to see that. D, you want to say anything about D, Jim?
I think Anthony nailed it. I mean, the documentary that came out a little while ago about Randy Rhoads, I mean, you really learn a lot about, I mean, there's been many documentaries. The latest one that came out there, I think it's on Tubi or Hulu. It's awesome, a must watch. And they delve into all his, his classical background, his classical aspirations, and how good of a guitar player he is. And I mean, this just showcases it, 50 seconds or whatever. But I mean, I'm with you, Blake. I think this would have been great to be like a 3-minute instrumental to him. It would have been awesome.
Agreed, totally.
And they've only played that 2 times live, which is, I don't really understand that, but that's what it said. It was played 2 times live.
Blake, who played it live?
Well, I'm assuming Randy Rhoads probably, but I'm not sure why they would have only did it twice. You think he would did a guitar solo, or he might have threw it in there. I really
hope that no one but Randy would play it. I know there was a tribute where they had the guys from like Testament and stuff, where they all 7 guitarists all played it together, and it was actually really, really good. And other than Randy playing it by himself, that tribute that was played to him was the best thing I've heard too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't say like who the guitarist was, but I'm assuming it was probably just on that first tour. And I'm just not sure why he would only do it twice. You think he would have did it every one before he did a guitar solo or something, probably, but that's just what it says anyway. So then we go to.
I don't think you would want to play D before Suicide Solution.
Well, now we go to Suicide Solution, and Anthony, you go Suicide Solution.
Okay, so I'm going to take it from the live version, which is just remarkable. And you got to see the love between Ozzy and Randy. And that solo was like one of the most inspiring things for me. And when, again, I'll say it again, I can play it fully. Can I master it? Never, because no one can ever copy what Randy did. But the song in itself was important. There were all those court cases about it, just so much controversy. But the song itself, if you really listen to it, it's not a happy song at all. And people really got the wrong message behind the whole thing about it.
Yes, yeah. And Jim, do you have any information on this?
My favorite song on the album, maybe 1A of my favorite song. I'll have a 1B a little later on, but this is a great album. Great song. And I mean, as Anthony touched on there, the suicide, and I think it was October of '84, where somebody claims there was messages on there. Like, in all fairness, the song's about suffering from, addiction. It was originally written, I believe, according to the story, about Bon Scott, but I believe he's been sort of recanted a little bit, where some of the members from Ozzy's band said,
I loved Bon Scott. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
And I think it was he ended up kind of writing it Ozzy about himself and what he was going through, probably through his Zeppelin years, and what he was continuously going through at this point in his career. But you know, it's a great song. Musically, it's awesome, and I agree with Anthony. I think it's sad that, you know, everybody from maybe the PMRC to parents and everybody else, you know, you have somebody who acts on something. I doubt this was maybe not at all even the catalyst that happened. I mean, things happen all the time, but the song is wicked, and it's well crafted, and it's got a great message to it. I mean, it is, you know, right from the first line. And I mean, you know, wine is fine, with whiskey's quicker. I mean, it says it right there, and
totally.
I guess they're just not getting it. So
is that the great message, that whiskey is quicker than wine?
yes, always.
But it also tastes better.
Well, don't tell a wine drinker that.
I like my wine with steak too, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything to add because Jim said everything I have wrote down here, so I'm not going to add anything about that. And yes, I love the song too. There really isn't one song on here I don't like, really. So then we go to Mr. Crowley, and this song is about Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one, because that's an absolute masterpiece that I can listen to over and over and over again. It's got every element. It's just brilliant from the first minute to the last second.
Well, you can go on. You've already started now.
Well, no, I interrupted you, so now you continue. But Mr. Crowley is one of the best songs I've ever heard.
And Jim, what do you think of Mr. Crowley?
Oh, it's an awesome song. That haunting opening, if that was made, like, I mean, you know, it could never be reproduced like that now. The first time you hear it, and even now when you hear it, it gives you, the hair stands up on your arms, the back of your neck. I mean, it's got that haunting start. And, you know, that's when I'm searching out, I like a lot of black and thrash and stuff like that. When I'm searching that out, I'm looking for that feeling that I got when I first heard and when I still hear that song. And, you know, it's hit or miss out there now, and nothing like that, but it's just such a great song. And I mean, I agree with you guys. It's awesome. That's close to my 1B, maybe my 1C. So
to me, this is the closest song to a Black Sabbath song on here. Is this
True.
one a little bit? I think.
True.
I'm going to continue what I was saying. The solo that Randy does is untouchable. The way he keeps going. There are not very many guitarists that can pull that off to keep the flow of the solo going throughout the song. Absolute brilliance.
And you can tell from his solos that if you listen to classical music at all, and I like classical music a little bit, mostly when it's incorporated in heavy metal, but you can definitely tell his like for classical music, even in his solos and just the way he plays. You can definitely feel that in there. And Jim, you mentioned the documentary on Randy Rhoads, and Anthony, you mentioned Eddie Van Halen. I was just going to mention something. Now, I'm not sure if this is the one you're talking about, but it's supposedly had a feud with Eddie Van Halen or something, and somebody put Eddie Van Halen's picture on his wah-wah pedal or his distortion pedal so that Randy Rhoads could stomp on Eddie Van Halen's face when he was playing the guitar. I don't know if he really wanted to do that, but I just thought I'd bring that up. So
I never heard about that one. But there's no competition.
Well, yeah.
There's no competition whatsoever.
Well, we don't want to piss off any Van Halen fans. I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
Sorry. I like Van Halen, but I like Randy Rhoads better than Eddie Van Halen. Yes. Okay, now we're going to talk about, I think this is about porn movies, isn't it? No Bone Movies. Oh, wait, before I go to that, I forgot to say Suicide Solution is the third song they've played the most live, and Mr. Crowley is the fourth song they've played the most live. Just forgot about that. Now, No Bone Movies, I don't know whose turn it is. Let's say Jim.
Great, good song. I mean, I like this song a lot. This whole album, like you guys, I pretty much like everything that's on here. You know, that guitar riff again. I mean, we're talking about, it's almost like we're repeating ourselves on every song with this, but it's just that, you know, what the musicianship of this album is so good. I mean, you know, and you know, Anthony made a great point there, not to knock Ozzy, because I love Ozzy. I love Ozzy now. I love Ozzy then. But in a lot of cases, I mean, in the condition he probably was in, I mean, when he was recording this or whatever, the band really upped his game. And, you know, Randy, the band really upped his game and really brought it. So when you have a band like that, you know, it allows you to, you know, to really sound great. And I mean, I think this song, I like it. That guitar riff is amazing, and no, it's a great song that I like a lot for sure.
Anthony?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Jim on a lot of the points that he mentioned, but overall, Ozzy was getting soft at this point. And yeah, he had great musicians, and I think that's the only thing that kept him going, because of the people who were backing him up. So Jim is totally correct.
Yes, and I agree with that too. And maybe if Sharon Osbourne wasn't his wife, he probably could have did better.
Exactly.
But we won't get into her. But anyway.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Yeah, and yeah, we don't need to talk about her. Okay, so now this is my favorite song on the album, Revelation Mother Earth. This is my favorite one on the album, but again, it's a little slower at times, but again, it's just the guitar solo, the lead up to the guitar solo, the piano leading up to before Randy starts really getting into it, and this is just one of my favorite songs ever. Anthony, you're the guitar guy. Let's hear about this solo.
Yeah, well, it's all about orchestration. And that's where one of the things where Randy really shined. He brought everything together. Everything was written by him. He just, the composition of how he was able, like, I mean, like, how would I say, like a Mozart or Beethoven. He knew like the orchestral feel of everything, and he brought it all together, and really ahead of its time. I think the only other band that tried something like that was Queen, but when Randy gets involved with anything, you can't beat it. It's done. You'll never top Randy.
And Jim?
Yeah, this is my 1B, but could be my 1A, tied with Suicide Solution. This is a fantastic song, and I compare it to maybe some Deep Purple, like in the sense that with the piano in there and the keyboards in there, it, you know, I mean, no, you know, I'm not saying Blackmore and Rhoads. I'm just saying it has that sort of feel of a Deep Purple album where they put so much focus on that. I mean, it sounds so cool. You know, that classical beginning is just great. And I mean, this is the longest song on the album at 6 minutes, 10 seconds on, I think, a 38-minute album. So you really get a lot of flow with it. And I just, it's very Deep Purple-ish to me, but with that added bonus, I mean, you got guys, he's got some cool vocals, and you've got the musicianship of Randy there that just puts it over the top for sure. But yeah, this would be my other absolute favorite on the album.
And then we finish with another rockin' one with Steal Away the Night. Jim.
You know what? This is a fast song. I think this is the fastest song on the album, and it's very, I like it. It's got a great chorus. It's kind of an easy, fun song to end the album on. It's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know how many you probably have the stats there. How many times this would be a great live song? and I don't think I've seen it live or like on any video or anything like that. So, but I like this song, and I think it's pretty cool. I like where it's placed on the album, and again, it's got a great flow, a great chorus to it.
Go ahead, Anthony. Sorry, I'm looking something up.
Well, I thought it was a great song. Would I call it pre-thrash? Probably not, but it is pretty quick. But Ozzy's vocals really shine here. And you can see just a great collaboration between the two of them. You can sense that there really was a connection between Ozzy and Randy.
Yes. Now, you mentioned about the song, how many times they played the song live, but as I look at the list, they have Black Sabbath songs in here too, which,
right.
So it's kind of crowded, but it is in the top 20 as well as was Revelation Mother Earth. It's in the top 20 of songs he's played live, but there is some Black Sabbath songs in there too. So it kind of goes there. Anyway, I like the song too. I don't really have anything to add to it. And so that's the album. Now, I'm not going to talk. There was a reissue or there's other songs on them, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the original with the original band. And we're going to rate the album. Who wants to rate it first? Anthony, you're new, so you can rate it first.
You're putting me on the spot here. I like really, because it's a freaking classic.
10s are okay. It's okay to say 10.
And I'm completely biased towards Randy. But if I was to break it down in terms of Ozzy's vocals, the bass, the drums, and especially Randy, I would easily give this. You guys are going to kick my ass. 9.5.
That's okay.
Okay.
Jim, what are you giving it?
A 9.5 as well. I have it written down here. 9.5. I like. I mean, the album's a masterpiece. I probably gravitate to maybe Diary of a Madman a little bit more. I like that one, but it's a great album. I mean, 9.5 out of 10. Ozzy's first solo album, so shaking the rust off, getting in there. And I mean, obviously, with Randy on both those albums, that's phenomenal. So 9.5 out of 10 for me.
Well, I was worried about my rating because I thought you guys would give me hell for it, but I also gave it 9.5.
All right.
Because I thought you were going to say, how come you're not giving it a 10 or whatever? But so we all gave it 9.5.
Yeah, it needed more of a showcase. It needed more. And that was, if there was one or two more songs that really showcased the musicianship of everyone in the band, including Ozzy, especially Randy, then it would definitely deserve a 10.
And Anthony, what did you think of Diary of a Madman? Do you like it as much as this one, or a little bit more or less?
It's everything that he's done. When I say he has done, I don't mean Ozzy. I don't mean Randy. I would give it the same rating, but I think they could have done a lot more. Yes.
Well, I like them both, and it's way better than Bark at the Moon anyway, or whatever. Nothing against Shaky Lee. I mean, there's some good songs on it, but
he's so cheese.
If I go back to listen to Ozzy, it's only these two albums is really the only two Ozzy albums I'm listening to, really. Okay, so that's the album. So we're going to do, I was going to ask about who's seen it live. I know Anthony and me have not seen Ozzy live. Jim, do you have anything? You've seen Ozzy live twice, I guess you said, same tour or something? Which tour was that?
Back-to-back nights in Halifax and Moncton. So, he was coming. I at that point in time, I think it was 2008. So at that point, I thought I may never see him again. I mean, he's been trundling along since then, but I'm really glad I got to see him put on a great show both nights.
And it was just a lot of fun. That's great.
Yeah.
And what tour was that then? No More Tears, maybe?
No, I think it was Black Rain, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was Black Rain, although I don't remember the set list. I remember, I mean, he played some Black Sabbath stuff on there for the encores and that, but I don't remember him even playing anything off the new album, or maybe one track. It was pretty diluted for that album, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, and I never got seen Ozzy or Sabbath either with Ozzy or anything. So we're gonna do our top 10 hard rock / heavy metal albums of 1980. And I'm going to let the new guy go first. So Anthony, count down from number 10 to number 1. You can make a few comments along the way if you want, but don't go into detail on every album. But
yeah. So I think my top 10 is going to be extremely different from Jim's, but let's see. Number 1, obviously from 1980.
Hey, can you start at 10?
Oh, 10?
Yeah,
count backwards.
Count backwards.
Now you're making it work. Like,
well, you didn't write it down?
No, I didn't write it down. I have it in my head.
Okay, if it's easier, then go 1 to 10. That's fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna say number 1 right now. Rain and Blood.
No, I want the top 10 albums of 1980 though.
That was 1986.
No, of the Blizzard of Oz. No, I know, but
actual 1980.
Yes.
Oh, geez.
So if you didn't,
oh.
No, I meant the year, just the year.
Jim, help me here. You got to take over now, man.
Sorry, we had some miscommunication. So yeah, well, me and Jim will do it then. You can comment on our picks then.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll comment, but I thought 80s.
No, I meant the single year 1980. Yeah. Sorry, so that's okay.
Everyone knows now. Number 1 for me is Rain and Blood.
Yeah. Okay.
Great album.
Let's do. Okay, so me and Jim will do 1980. So Jim, give me your top 10 list and start at number 10.
My number 10 is AC/DC Back in Black. You know, great album. I missed out on AC/DC on our last one, the best of the 70s. So I wanted to throw them a bone and get it in there. You know, Brian Johnson, great album. So going on to my number 9, you know, I went with Motorhead, Ace of Spades. I mean, awesome album. Love Motorhead. And that's a great one from that year. Number 8, I fall back on one of my favorite bands from the 70s and early 80s, you know, Scorpions, you know, Animal Magnetism, a wicked album. It's got one of my favorite songs on there with the zoo and Falling in Love. I decided not to do what I did last time and only pick one band from, so I've got a band in here twice. So number 7 is Saxon, you know, Saxon, Wheels of Steel. So that's an awesome album. 747, Strangers in the Night. Great. Saxon's my favorite traditional metal band. So them and Iron Maiden would be probably my favorite. Number 6, Blue Oyster Cult, Cultosaurus Erectus. I mean, Lips in the Hill is a phenomenal song.
Jim, you're talking Chinese to me.
Oh, geez, no. Blue Oyster Cult's one of my
Well, there's not much extreme metal in 1980, so go ahead.
There was not much, no.
Venom.
That was
5,
81.
Yeah, that's right. That was 81.
Venom was 81.
Oh.
Number 5 is Saxon again with Strong Arm of the Law. I mean, I love that album. Dallas 1 p.m. on there. That's great. My number 4 is Ozzy, Blizzard of Oz. You know, and I talked about it. And remember, these are all 9.5s to 10s. Number 3, Priest with British Steel. I mean, Breaking the Law, Metal Gods. How can you go wrong? Number 2, and I fought with this one between my number 1 and my number 2. Number 2, I'm giving it to, you know, Black Sabbath with Heaven and Hell. I mean, one of my Children of the Seas, one of my favorite songs, and I love Die Young on that. And my number 1 is the Iron Maiden debut, you know, Phantom of the Opera, Running Free. I mean, phenomenal album. I remember seeing that album probably around 82, 83, and just the cover, I mean, just absolutely blew me away. So that's my top 10 in a nutshell.
Anthony, do you like any of those except Ozzy?
No, I agree with Jim. I know all those albums. I just haven't really given them a deep listen.
Well, you're younger than we are, so.
But I know all the albums. I just my own, from my personal life experience, kind of starts at 86.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay, now I'll do mine. I think I got 8, the same as not in the same position, but I think I have 8 of the same albums.
Oh, impressive.
Jim did 7 or 8 anyway. So number 10, actually my top 5 are pretty easy. Then the bottom 5 were like, where should I put these in here? Whatever. So number 10, I got Triumph, Progressions of Power, even though it's probably it's not one of my favorite Triumph albums, but it came out that year. I need to get a Canadian band in here somewhere. And let's see, number 9, I got Saxon, Wheels of Steel. And number 8, I have Saxon, Strong Arm in the Law. I put them right beside each other.
Good stuff.
Number 7, I have Ted Nugent with Scream Dream.
Okay.
Wango Tango's on there. I love that song. Number 6, I have Anthony's second favorite guitarist, Van Halen, with Women and Children First.
I hate Van Halen.
I know, I'm joking. But I like that album though. And number 5, I got Judas Priest, British Steel. Number 4, I have Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell.
Yes.
So I like Randy Rhoads better than, I like Ozzy with Randy Rhoads. I mean, better than the Black Sabbath album that year. Just because I like Randy Rhoads better than Tony Iommi, I guess.
There you go. So do I.
So number 3, Motorhead, Ace of Spades. And 1 and 2 are kind of hard to decide. Of course, number 2 is Iron Maiden's debut album, and number 1 is the Ozzy Blizzard of Oz.
Yes.
And again, it's because of Randy Rhoads, really.
Exactly.
Because Iron Maiden is one of my favorite groups of all time, and maybe if that would have been the first Iron Maiden album I heard, it might have been different. But since The Number of the Beast is the first Iron Maiden album I heard, this one isn't as sentimental, maybe, or whatever. But yeah, Blizzard of Oz.
Imagine if Randy played with Iron Maiden.
Well, yeah, it's sad that we couldn't hear what Randy could have did.
Yes.
I mean, he was great on these 2 albums, but it's too bad we couldn't see where he would have went. I don't know if he really would have stayed with Ozzy for very long.
No.
Because I think he would have did his own thing.
He would have moved around quite a bit.
Yes.
I got some honorable mentions.
Sure, go ahead. Yes.
Lightning to the Nations, Diamond Head. I mean, and they just re-released that, I think, in 2022. I bought the I think it's the White Album, I think it's called now, but Diamond Head, wicked. I mean, you've got some great, Metallica's covered a ton of their stuff, which is pretty cool. I had Women and Children First, as Van Halen is one of my honorable mentions. On Through the Night, Def Leppard. The first 2 Def Leppard albums, in my mind, were the best. Pyromania was good, and then after that it kind of went severely downhill. I'm a Rebel by Accept is another great album, and I'm a huge Tigers of Pantang, and I'm throwing this one honorable mention. It's not my favorite Tigers album. It's a great album, but this is Tom Elke out there, one of our fellow writers. He's a huge Tigers fan as well, so that's one of my honorable mentions. And Michael Schenker Group had an album out in that time as well too, which was really
He's another great guitarist, Jim.
Yes. And I was going to mention that was his debut album, I believe, his solo debut album, I think, because I had that as an honorable mention. Now I have Back in Black here. Now I'm a Bon Scott guy, but I did listen to Back in Black obviously when it came out, but now I just listen to all the Bon Scott albums. But anyway, that's it. Do you want to make a list on the fly from 1980 from our lists, Anthony?
No. You guys go ahead with your 1980. I'm going to start with 86 and start getting into death metal and black metal.
Well, just for fun, give me your top 5 from the 80s that you were gonna do. Just give me your top 5.
Like,
Flair was first.
like 1980.
No, do what you're planning on doing the 80s. Just give me your top 5 from the 80s that you were gonna do.
Oh, easily. Rain and Blood, number
Yes.
1. Master of Puppets, begrudgingly. Hell Awaits. And when did the Seasons come out? Was that 91 or 90 or
That
89?
was 9. It might have been 89. But
Obituary came out in 89.
Yeah.
And Cannibal Corpse came out in 89.
Okay.
So we're talking way different scopes here of metal.
Well, yeah, well, someday we'll do. Oh no. Well, see, the only reason I don't know if you listened to the Deep Purple podcast, me and Jim did top albums of the 70s, just because I didn't think there'd be enough albums for the year 1972. So that's why I did that. But once we get into the 80s, I think there's enough albums from the 80s to get 10 from a year. I don't know. That's what I thought. But anyway, so that's it. And I'll thank you guys for joining me on this podcast. This was fun. We had a guitar guy on here to give us some of that kind of guitar talk with Anthony. So thanks, Anthony, and thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. This was amazing. I can't wait for our next one.
Oh, it was awesome. I had a lot of fun. This is great.
Okay, thanks. So make sure everybody checks out our website again, www.themetalpit.org. We have album reviews, interviews, and links to our podcast can be found there and to our YouTube channel. Our next episode will be talking about Arch Enemy's 2002 album, Wages of Sin. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and goodbye.
Good night, guys.